Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. We are going to cover the door leaf screens in the WinBid Pro software here by GDS. And there's some configurations that are important to know and some things that are similar to other parts of the program where the door leaves in the master list are a little different than the door leaves in your elevations. So we'll cover those differences as well. And so let's go ahead and get started here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the master door leaf icon or item right here in the menu. So it's very similar and much like other parts of the program where the master means that's the one that you configure, and every time you create a job from then on, or every time in this case you put a door in from here on, it's going to have whatever configuration you put in the master. So when we click the door leaves there, I'm going to scoot this over. When we click the door leaves from the master menu, from the main menu, we see our master list. And like the other screens for frames and door frames, you can click which one's a favorite. So if you use a certain type of door leaf a lot, like if it's this, well, let's go down to another thing is searching for door leaves. So I can type in the word medium. That's going to bring up all the medium door leaves. And if I do right hinged, and then say 96-inch tall doors, I can do that. So we're using the Trulight Glass Aluminum catalog right now, and they have a pretty good selection of doors and door frames. So with this criteria, with this filter I've entered in, medium, right hinged, 96-inch tall openings, there's actually 48 different configurations, so that's quite a few for that type. So, and they're all series 300, 300 and 356. So if you know the Trulight catalog, you'll be familiar with like what packages are used in that case. But so if it's something like that I use a lot, this butt hung surface mount medium style, I can do that as a favorite. And if there's another one down here, oh, you know what I should do? I'm sorry, there's not 48, so I should keep typing right instead of just the R, because the word pair has an R in it. So now there's only 30. So now, in this case, it's showing us both 36 and 42-inch wide. So if there's a 42 that you use a lot, we can make that a favorite, and so forth. So you see how there's that little pencil icon on the left there. That means we've edited something, and I like to click off or use my arrows to go to a different record to make sure it saves that. So now if I sort by favorites, my favorites come up at the top. So normally, we'd be sorting by description, which would be just alphabetical by the description field here. But if you do have some favorites and you'd rather just see those at the top all the time, then that's what this is for. So keep that in mind. And that should remember that. If I close and go back to door leaves, it remembers that I've sorted by favorites and shows me those. So that's important. You probably know you can copy doors. So if there's a door that you want to make very similar except change a couple things, like make it a narrow instead of a medium, or add some different hardware to it, you can change the description and you can copy it. So let's say it's this favorite one I've selected. I hit copy doors, and now it copies it. Now what it might have done here is put it at the bottom or somewhere. It should say copy of. Oops. So where are we here when I copy something? Well, I guess I am wrong with that. So another way to look for it is by door ID. The door ID is a number that we don't really have control over. It's automatically done by the software. So that as you go, the higher the numbers are going to get, and you don't really have control. But it is a fixed number that doesn't change for this door. So here's the one that was copied, and that should say copy in there. So I'm going to make a note that add copy to the description. So that way it's easier to find. But then we can just say Series 300 medium. So I should be able to edit it right here. with custom hardware or something. So I can change that description real easily. Like I say, I like to click off of that. Now I can double click this one to edit it. So this is one that I've copied. I'm editing it now so the original one's still there. I can even make this a favorite right here. So any height, any width you want is basically configured here. The one thing to remember about door leafs is it has to fit inside of a door frame. So if you make some custom, 102-inch tall, 38-inch wide door, then you're going to have to make sure there's a door frame that it'll fit into. So you would basically do the same thing, copy a door frame, edit the size, make sure it's fitting. So this is actually the inside dimension of the door frame that a door leaf is going into. So, we all know that the door is slightly smaller than the door frame so that it can swing and not rub and all that. So these dimensions here are merely to match up a door to a door frame. If we had true actual sizes, there'd be fractions and decimals and it'd be real hard to kind of look at. So that's why we've done it this way. So going down this little list here, so door style, it's medium style obviously, so that just helps you select it from the list or do that filter like I did to help find the door you're looking for. And same thing with hinge. Now, remember that GDS uses the hinge terminology. So if it swings out, a right hinge door is actually a left-handed door. So a lot of times you'll see the description having the LH for left-handed. So in most doors, in this case, they're swing out unless they're swinging both ways. Center pivot, then that's not the case. But still, I think you use the same terminology for the handing and the hinging. So we have the swing out direction here. So the options there are both ways, in and other. Other is just in case it's neither of those three. And then pivot type is butt hung. So all these things just basically help you select it from the list. That's why they're there. And some of these have notes. TrueLight is real good about adding notes to a lot of their things. So they've told us what this door leaf package includes. Now we know this is a door leaf package because I can go here and I can just see one part number for the entrance. So per entrance meaning if it's a pair, it's going to, or no, so I'm sorry, if it's per door leaf, then I could have put in, if it's a pair of doors and each door leaf's the same part number, which it wouldn't be typically, but you could actually put that part number in once for per door leaf. So let's say it's a handle, and it's the same handle on both sides for a pair of doors. You can put that part number in here once, and it knows a pair of door has 2 leaves, and it would double it for you. And so that's just in a case where you know that it's something that it's one part number, but the program can figure out when it's needed for a single and when it's needed for a pair to double. But the per entrance thing, so you got one entrance, whether it's a pair or a single, so it's just going to apply this part number once in this case. So one part number is covering this particular butt hung 36 by 96 left-handed door leaf, and that's why these notes over here were telling us what hardware is included with it. Now, if you want to add different hardware, then you can just start adding it per entrance. You can do it also by door leaf, like I mentioned, where it would double it if it's a pair and give you one if it's single. So that's what those things are for. Let's jump back to here. So now for profiles. So we've got our height and width. We know that the program's going to draw it that way. And we know that it needs a door frame that matches that. So now we need to know, or the program needs to know, what profiles to draw. So how does it know whether you want narrow, medium, or wide drawn in the drawing? And this is how. We're telling it what inches the top rail profile is, what the bottom rail profile is, and what the styles are. And then we have the mid-rail Muntin bar, which could be a push bar for a opener, or it could just be a handlebar. But you can tell it the profile of that. And after we go through this, we'll go and mess with one of those in an elevation. Excuse me. But Okay, so then these measurements, so those are obviously going to draw true to what you put in here. So a handicap bottom rail of 10, or yeah, bottom rail of a 10-inch, you just enter a 10 in this value instead of a 6.5. And then you could put a note here that says either 10-inch bottom rail or handicap or whatever. Styles are obviously going to be the same left and right. And the top rail is whatever you tell it to be here. So now these measurements over here will help you mostly for glass size and also for extrusions if you decide to cut your door by stock length. So if you're a door manufacturer and you make your own doors and weld them and bolt them and assemble them, then you'd want to be entering correct values here. But the other thing is if you want your true glass sizes, you enter the correct values here, and these directly affect glass sizes, as do these added daylight values. So the added daylight values for your door frame that are back over here under frame systems and elevation frame systems, that's only for an elevation, the lights in an elevation, not for a door light. So door light has its own added daylight, and since all door lights, standard door lights, door frames have, door leaves have glass stop material, then we have the added daylight that takes into account the glass stops. So that's these values. So what we're going to do is play with that a little bit too, but let's go back to the parts and let's look at what other part numbers we can enter. So we've already done the per entrance per door leaf. Per door light would be for setting blocks, let's say, for door glass. If there's a mutton bar, then there's two pieces of glass, and it would know to give whatever's in this column here to each piece of glass, whatever part numbers you put. And you can do the asterisk too. Let's see, setting blocks. So I can search for the part by, so here's a setting block right here. So I can go ahead and add that. Let's say if I needed those and those didn't come with the package. And then I can say I need 2 of those. So I put my asterisk 2 here, and it's going to give me 2 of those per light. So whether or not I'm using a mutton bar, it'll figure it out. And then we've got our, let's go down here to stock length. So if we are building or fabricating our door out of stock length material, this is where we put the part numbers in. So notice we have the mid rail, we got top rail, bottom rail, mid rail, but we also have the hinge style and the lock style. And for the pairs, the pair meeting style. So it covers basically all the stock lengths you would need for the, and then you've got your glass stop here and the glazing gasket here, which is by the foot. So basically, if you do fabricate your own doors and manufacture your own doors, you can have it show you the stock length cutting on your cut list. You can have it figure your gasket material required and down to the glass stop material. So that's it. And now that this one doesn't have any details for doors, but if you do have details for doors, it's the same as the framing systems and door frames, where you tell it, let's see here, I believe we double click in the file name field here, and then it'll bring up our browse window. And let's say you downloaded a detail from the internet and you needed a top rail detail or whichever one of these details you wanted. And even if it was a complete door detail, you could actually just put that in either one of, just put it once in any one of these fields and it'll pick it up and show you that complete detail as well. So even if you don't have the individual details. So, I could browse for one. If I knew this was my door detail I downloaded, I could select that and hit open. And then it adds it to this field, and then we can view it. And if it was the correct detail, it would be showing us right here. So that would be included if you went ahead and did shop drawings for any job that you added this door to, it would show you that detail. So again, very similar to how it works in the framing systems and the door frames for details, showing details. So that's in a nutshell what your door frame configurations look like. Now let's go ahead and add one to a job, and then we can mess with it. So let's go ahead and create a little test job here. And door test job, finish is fine. and I always just like to call it first. Now let's have some side lights here, so I'll just go ahead and pick any old system. Here's a storefront thermal system. So I'm going to pick that. And I knew I'd have that problem. I think I forgot to update my software on my computer. I apologize. So let's, oh, now it's going to give me trouble here, isn't it? Let's see if it'll let me get out of this with a different, no. Okay, I apologize, guys. I'm going to have to Control-Delete. If this ever happens to you, Control-Delete is the way to go, and then we can end the task and start the program back up. So, sorry about that. So yeah, I think I just forgot to update my laptop here. I don't use this much for the software. But what we'll do is we'll mess with these doors here. And actually what I'll do is just create a new elevation. Let's see if we can do that. Second. Okay, sorry for the other trouble. So let's see, we're going to say it's 3 panels. We're going to say it's just 120 wide, 120 tall. It's kind of my standard frame. And then let's go to the Doors tab. We're going to say Add Entrance. Now remember, I tell it what panel I want, and if it's a manufacturer that's configured entrances, which by the way is our next webinar, if entrances are configured, then we can go ahead and pop that up, and it'll put a door frame and door leaf in one shot. And I can use the little filter bar here if I wanted the 96. There aren't any entrances configured for that, bummer. So let's go ahead and put a single right hinge left-handed in this opening. So now that stuck the door frame and the door leaf in there. So now to see what the specs are, or what the settings are for that door leaf, I'm going to hit Edit Selected Door Parts. That's going to open up the same screen we were just looking at. So again, this is an 8436. If I wanted to make this, and here's what I like to do. Well, usually I change the frame first, but if I wanted to make this a 94, just some oddball size, by a 38, I would change those values here. I like to tab down to the next field. Now, what it should do, if I hit redraw, sometimes it doesn't redraw the first time, so I'm going to hit redraw. So you'll see there's a problem, right? So I put a big door into a smaller frame. So now I have to go in, and it's showing me the height of the frame, but not the height of the door leaf. So now I forget already what I did. So 94 by 38. So now it's time to change the door frame. So it's going to be 94 by 38. So that's really what the door frame needs, is the same exact height and width that we entered for the door leaf. So again, it didn't redraw the first time, so I'm going to hit redraw, and now it's good. So now the frame matches the door leaf. That's what we want. So the next thing we want to do. Now remember that when you do that, you're going to have to go in and make some adjustment to the part numbers, whether it's a custom door charge, whether it's a different package that you know of. I would just go ahead and add it here. So I'd click in that next row. I'd go down here and I'd hit look for the part number. I don't know what True Light would call a door charge, but anyway, it could be any part that basically, whoops, I made it too big, that's basically needed for that non-standard door that we're working on. So that's the same thing goes. I can click or just type in whatever part number I need for the door leaf, or we're not really dealing with the door light stuff right now, but per entrance or per door leaf, I can just type them right there. So I've added those parts. Oh, that was what I was going to say. So let's go back. Sorry. Let's go back to here. Now, let's say the top rail is not quite 3.5. Let's say it's something. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll do a 4-inch top rail. We'll do a 10-inch bottom rail and 4-inch stiles. So we're going to make this so it's a little easier for us to figure the glass size. And let's do that. So the door, let's say the height deduct is 0.5. The width deduct is 0.5, just to make it easier. So, and that would be a 1/4 inch on each side. This would be a 1/4 inch top and bottom. Glass stop profile is 0.5, just to make that easier. And bottom door gap is 0.25. So that's another deduction in the height, basically. But essentially, it's going to increase the gap at the bottom only and not center the door, top and bottom. So it basically determines how it shows, not only the height of the door, but how it shows up in the drawing. Let's go ahead and make these, let's make these 1 inch for the added daylight. And so here's what we got. Let's see if this shows up a little different in the drawing. I'm going to redraw. Now I'm going to click on my drawing and I'm going to zoom in here. So if we zoom in real tight, we see the gaps around the door. So it's drawing it true, you know, WYSIWYG or true to size, proportional, I guess. And let's go down to the bottom. So even when we scroll down to the bottom, we see a gap down at the bottom for the threshold. We see the side gaps. So all that looks good. Here's our door stops. I'm sorry, our glass stops in the door leaf. And so it's done a good job drawing what we've entered. So we've got our 4-inch stiles, our 10-inch bottom rail, all that. So now let's go and figure what the glass size should be. And let's go ahead and put some glass in there, actually. We'll just take any old type of glass, do it by light. Remember, for door glass, it's always by light. So we take that, we click on the door light, and now we've got our glass in there. So here's what we should be seeing with the door glass. We have, I'm going to go down here. So we have our 94-inch tall door minus our 10-inch bottom rail, so that's 84, minus our top rail, which is 4 inches, so that gives us 80. So the height is the height of the glass is 80, less the 1/2-inch glass stop, top and bottom, which is 1 inch. So that's 79 inches of daylight. So our daylight in height is 79. So same thing for the width. Let's say we just use all those same calculations. Oh, and what we didn't take into account is the deducts here for the height deduct. So that's another 1/2 inch. So it's plus the door gap of the bottom is 3/4 of an inch. So that would be 79 minus 3/4. So our daylight should be 78 1/4. Now we're adding an inch to that with our add to daylight, so that means we've got 79.25. That's what we should see when we go to our glass. So we're going to go to our elevation glass, our second elevation, and we're going to look at it. So here we are with 79 1/4. So we know that works right. So as long as we are dialing in, obviously our height and width, which is pretty straightforward, that's going to show us on the drawing. But if our rail sizes are true to size, you know, based on the actual door that you're buying, our deducts are correct. So you can even work backwards. If you know the actual size of the door that you are purchasing, you could work backwards and just make sure that you're putting in the right dimensions here. You could even put in a top rail that is a little bit shorter and have no deduct. But the problem with that is the overall size. So really you have to have, you don't want to change your overall size too much. You want to make it easy to read. You want to make it the way it lists it in the catalog and all that. So anyway, that's how you would get your actual door glass size. You've got your correct added daylight, your deducts, your overall size is good, and your stiles and bottom rail. So all that is good in terms of, well, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm on a Wi-Fi network right now, and it might be messing up a little. Okay, so that's how you would dial those values in to get the actual correct door glass. And if it's not coming out right, the best thing to do, if you know your stiles are correct according to the catalog and all that, the best thing to manipulate here is these deduct values, the width, height, and even the door gap. And the glass stop profile should be true to size. And then, of course, you can always mess with your vertical add, and I mean your added daylight for glass. You could the more you add to this, the bigger the glass gets. The smaller this number is, the smaller the glass gets. So it's a pretty straightforward relationship there. So you can get your door glass correct, and that's exactly what you need to do it. So I had someone email me earlier about Herculite doors and heavy glass doors. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use the same framing system. Let's just say this is a 2-panel opening. It's a Herculite and a side light. And let's just say it's 110. Oh, no, not that big. So let's say it's a 42-inch Herculite. Let's just say 60 wide by 84 tall. Let's say it's there's no transom. So here's what we'd have to do. So we've got our basic elevation. I'm going to go to doors. If I don't have any door leaves and door frames for a Herculite, I'm just going to go ahead and put any old door in. So let's go ahead again. I'm going to put it in the first panel. I'm going to add an entrance. And this is going to go a little bit long maybe, so hopefully you guys have a few extra minutes to watch this. I'm going to go ahead and pick, where's my other favorite? Oh, it's not sorted by favorites in this, I'm afraid. So I would have to kind of look for it. Well, I don't know if I did favorites on the entrance, did I? Or was it just the door leaf? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. It's an 8436 entrance. So, now the problem is 84. So actually what it should be is 86 tall. So let's change that to 86. So the opening size is 86. Actually, it's 85 3/4. We're using an 1 3/4 frame. Let's put that in. Okay, so now we've got, and you saw the weirdness there at the top at the door head. That told me that something's not right with my dimensions. So our overall size matches the door height plus the door head. So now, if we want to mess with Herculite doors, all we're going to do is go in and edit the door parts. We're going to tell it, let's say it just has the top rail, bottom rail, or maybe even just the bottom rail. So let's say it's all glass except for the bottom rail. It has a floor lock kind of situation. So the bottom rail is going to be 8 inches. Top rail is 0, and the stiles are 0. Now the one limitation is, now remember, if this is true 8436, and we're not going to do an added daylight. Well, actually, we'll do an added daylight in the vertical by, let's say it has to be a 1/2 inch, or maybe 3/4 of an inch. Or actually 1 inch. So whatever the add is for a Herculite with a bottom rail. But the horizontal add would be 0. So that's going to be true to size widthwise. Now this is where the width deduct has to be accurate in terms of giving you actual glass size. So a 1/4 inch width deduct gives us an 1/8 on either side. That's good enough for now. Our glass stop, there's none. And bottom door gap, we can keep that because we need the, let's see. And let's say the deduct is only 0.25, and then our bottom door gap is an 1/8. So let's see what we get from all this. So it's an 8436, got an 8-inch bottom rail. So that would be 84 tall minus the bottom rail of 8 inches. That gives us 76 minus the height deduct of a 1/4 minus an 1/8. So that's 5/8. And so it would be 75 3/8 would be the height of the glass, of the Herculite glass. Now what we would do is obviously make sure our part numbers reflected the bottom rail, the hinges, the handles, so any hardware you need for that Herculite door, this is where you're going to have to put it. Per entrance is good enough. You can do per door leaf if you want. But in the per entrance you can have up to 10 parts. If you need more than 10 spaces, that's when you start sticking things in the door leaf column there. So that's the other thing, is make sure you're putting the correct hardware part numbers in. Let's go ahead and redraw one more time. So now we've got what looks like a a solid glass door with a bottom rail, and we're going to go to the glass, and let's see if we want to put in the glass thickness of 1, and it would be heavy. So you might have to add your glass for this too. That's the other trick, is if you have to add glass to the glass table, then we go back to the glass table here. So first thing we want to do is get off the glass tab, go back to the layout tab, go to our glass table, which I thought I clicked on. There we go. And let's just say we add a new part for glass. So Herculite door. So this, assuming that you're building the door. I mean, if you're buying it, then it's just a part number, obviously. But let's say you're building your 1-inch heavy glass door. Door glass. And then we can even put the label in there that says Herc. We could say it's green. And it's definitely tempered. And then we would say here for the labor, it's heavy glass. Thickness will be 1, 1.0. It's not insulated. Price, this would be a square foot deal. So if it's $10 a square foot, whatever. So supplier, you can leave that blank for now. So okay, we've added that to our glass table. Now we go to our glass, and I can type in Herc for my description. Oops, I spelled it wrong. Just keep spelling it wrong. So now I've got the Herculite door glass selected. I click on the door light, and now we're ready to go. So there's our Herc. We're ready to go to the elevation glass, and it's our 3rd elevation. We should see door glass and 76 5/8. Now I can't remember what I was, but you understand the relationship from before. We could change the height deduct, the bottom door gap, to affect the, well, let's just check the width. So we've got a 36-inch door, and we had a 1/4 inch width deduct, so that gives us the correct door glass width, 1/8 inch on either side. So the height, again, we would just close this. If we wanted to manipulate the glass size, we'd go back here, and we'd start messing with these values. Either take out the bottom door gap or change your overall height deduct. Those kinds of things will directly affect the height of your door glass. So, same thing goes with your vertical add. I forgot to add the daylight when I was figuring this. So that's going to directly affect your door glass size as well. Now, one last thing. So that would be your Herculite door stuff. Unfortunately, our program doesn't draw different handles and things, or the hinges. It's not going to give you templates to cut the glass for the hinges and all that, but eventually we want to add that type of functionality. It's just something it can't do right now. So let's go back to elevation 2, and let's put that Muntin bar in. So we're going to edit selected door parts. We're going to go to the Muntin bar, and we're going to do a 4-inch, and then also called a mid-rail. So the mid-rail center line height from the bottom of the door, let's call it 36 inches. And then I like to tab off of that. Click OK. And again, I wish it drew it the first time, but we hit redraw. So now it drew that in. So one way to check this, what I like to do sometimes is, and that's going to give us 2 pieces of glass. Now, notice how it didn't automatically give us 2 pieces of glass. So what I'm going to do is go back to here. I'm going to re-click that one just for fun, and then click that one and add glass to that second piece of the door light. And what I was going to say is I like to go in here, I'll zoom in, and then I will see how it gives you the door stop or the glass stop on the bottom light as well. I use this little distance tool, and from the bottom of the door I click, and then to about the center line of the, I'm just guessing here, That's about 36 inches. So it put it in the right spot according to what I told it. So that's your Muntin bar. And then if we go to our elevation glass, for the second elevation, it's showing us 2 pieces of glass. And they should be the same width, which they are, and obviously the heights are different. So that's it. You can adjust the placement of that Muntin bar just by putting a different centerline height in. So we would go back to here. You know, if you wanted equal glass sizes, then you'd have to figure out how high it has to be to get you those equal sizes. But basically this value here, we would change it. You know, I could call it 42, tab off of that, hit OK. And this time it drew it right away. So it's funny how that, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So I noticed because before it was down below the top of the handle. So now it's 42, so the glass size has changed. And it, you know, it's a direct effect between what you change in that screen and what you get in your door. So that is pretty much it. I think that covers everything. I know one of the goals in the future too is to make the door hardware entering a lot more user-friendly. Not like right now you just have to know the part numbers, you have to find them in the parts list, add them, or search for them and add them to your door configuration. But we want to be able to make that a more streamlined process in the future, so keep that in mind. But so the next webinar we're going to talk about the entrance screen, which is that combination of a door leaf and a door frame. And it's really easy to create entrances. It shows you what door leaf and frame you're using with an entrance, and really all it is a name you're giving that combination. So that's all an entrance is. You're picking the combination and you're naming it. And that's all it's needed. So so that's it for today's webinar. Go ahead and ask some questions if you like.